Okay, so this is the ROG Strix Scar 17 and it's one hell of a machine. It's got AMD's 7000 series super performance chip. It's rocking 32 gigs of RAM, 1 TB of fast M.2 SSD, an RTX 4080 GPU with 12 gigs of virtual RAM. I mean, this is surely one of the beasts out there that you're going to want. It's so close to the best gaming machine that you could get for yourself at this price point. Now look, there are definitely some higher performing variants, like some have the RTX 4090, or if you're an Intel lover, then there are machines that have the Core i9-3980HX, but then all of that does drive up the price point as well. Now let me talk about a few things that I really liked about the Strix Scar 17. And the first thing is the design. It is so apt. I mean, look, it's undoubtedly big and heavy. It's a proper gaming laptop, so I expect that. But the build quality, the material, and just the feeling of this thing sitting on my desk is so satisfying. At the same time, with the RGB keyboard, the wraparound light bar around the bottom edge, it also reminds you that, hey, it's time to play. It looks great. That's all I'm trying to say. Also, it's so stable. They place these very high quality rubber grips to hold the laptop firmly in place. By the way, this ain't a laptop that you want to carry around with you. It's obviously a big machine, it weighs 3 kgs, and it's definitely not meant for people who prefer or like portability. Now coming back to the material, they've actually put on a soft touch paint at the most touchy areas of the keyboard, and that helps you not add any smudges or, feel sweaty over prolonged use. And I think that is so thoughtful. I mean, I anyway really like it because that soft matte finish is just so much more comfortable than metal, especially if the machine's getting hot or if you're sitting where it's already very hot. That just ruins the experience, but this soft touch paint, brilliant move. I do want to take a moment and talk about the lid of the laptop. So, it feels very sturdy, very easy to just open, close. It's got the right resistance, so it doesn't feel flimsy at all. But at a point, it kind of just falls on its weight by itself. And so sometimes that could be a bit harsh, hard close. So just be a bit careful. Now, if you open the back, you do have an extra slot to add an extra M.2 SSD if you'd like to expand storage. You've got these 2 RAM slots upgradable to 64 GB, and the rest is really just about cooling and of course that big battery right over there. Now, the part that I'm not so thrilled about is the display. I mean, don't get me wrong, super display in general, but it isn't their Nebula or the Nebula HDR display, which obviously are a lot more color accurate and brighter. But for gaming, this is more than sufficient. But if you want one notch above, then there are variants in the Strix version that will offer those choices, but obviously for a higher price. Like even outdoors, I really had no issues viewing this screen despite it not being the Nebula HDR display, but yeah, brighter is usually better, right? Also, it's your usual 16:9 aspect ratio, which actually is more preferable for gaming than compared to, let's say, the increasingly popular 16:10 these days that all machines have now. Now, most gaming laptops, they don't have great audio, right? Although there are 2 tweeters and 2 downward firing speakers with Dolby Atmos support on this laptop, but they're not too loud or anything. But frankly, if you are a serious gamer, I understand that you don't really care about the system speakers, given. But ASUS, most of us buy one laptop for everything, right? Whether it's gaming, or whether it's watching movies or listening to music or just even, video calls or regular voice calls over Microsoft Teams or Skype. And we don't want to use different machines for different things. And it would be just great if you could really put in some good speakers out there in your machines, and it's just going to cut across all use cases. But okay, now let's jump into performance, and then we'll talk about some other extra things right after that. Now guys, I'm just going to throw one thing out there. I don't do benchmarks because I think there are people who do it so much better than I do, so I leave it to them. But I do want to talk about performance in general, how I feel about it. And I think this laptop, it holds it so well. And guys, performance is really just about 2 things when it comes to gaming. And it's not battery, it's actually consistent performance and really good heat management. So I started with playing Call of Duty, and I could get an average of above 100 FPS, which isn't bad. Look, I jacked up all the settings to ensure I was getting the highest gameplay experience that I could with this laptop. Now, sure, I could drop the settings and get higher frame rates if required, or turn on DLSS and get higher frame rates that way too. But then I played Valorant, generally less demanding, and my GPU was pushing out crazy high frame rates. The FPS was through the roof and there were no issues whatsoever. bottom line, you'll definitely get 240Hz of gameplay on most of the games with very little compromise on the graphic quality. So you could just reduce 2 or 3 things that really impact VRAM, and that way just free up some buffer and get super buttery, high frame rate gameplay on pretty much most games. Oh, and yes, there is a mux switch. So if you do want all of the computing power to come through the GPU, you could do that. Just push the frame rates a little higher and, enjoy a bit more. But what this laptop can't do is video editing. So I fired up Premiere Pro and it could not play back 4K 422 10-bit videos. It just couldn't do it. And even after I dropped the playback resolution to 1/8, even then it was very choppy. And so if you think that, hey, I'll get this laptop and I'll be able to edit videos, well, if it's 8-bit 4K files, then maybe you can sail through, but nothing beyond that. But sure, if you use Photoshop and Illustrator, Lightroom for all of that, this laptop is more than sufficient. And now coming to the second thing, which is heat management, I was actually pleasantly surprised. Now, there is one good thing and one bad thing. Let's talk about that. I mean, this doesn't get unbearably or unpleasantly hot. ROG goes all in with liquid metal coolant on CPU and GPU, 4 exhaust vents on this, arc flow fans, custom vapor chamber, and a couple of software solutions. And even the fan noise is quite bearable. It doesn't sound like a whirlwind like it used to, maybe 2 years ago. But the bad part is actually more to do with the placement of these vents. So by placing them on the side, the hot air kind of hits your hand while you're playing on the laptop. And again, it's not very hot or anything. It's warm air, and it's something you feel hitting your hand. And really quickly, let me touch upon the battery because there's really not much to talk about. It's not great. I mean, it's a gaming machine. It's really powerful, and everything in this laptop really guzzles up power to deliver that performance to you. And so you cannot expect anything more than 3 to 4 hours if you're using it, normally. And if you're gaming, then you'd be lucky to get about an hour. So yeah, that sums it up. Okay, now let's talk about all the other stuff, okay, starting with the ports. So on the sides, you've only got 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type A ports along with the audio combo jack. And then at the back, you've got 2 USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C ports, 1 2.5 GB LAN port, and 1 HDMI 2.1 port. By the way, one of the really good things about this laptop is if you're the kinds who likes to connect, like a TV or a big sized monitor to play games or anything, the HDMI port on this thing can actually transmit 4K at up to 120 FPS and 8K to up to 60 FPS. So, you've got that option available with you with the Strix Scar 17. There's a 720p webcam right here, just about decent for video calls, but it lacks facial recognition for Windows login. Obviously, you get the Asus Armory crate that'll, let you customize your keyboard lighting with various presets, and even the wraparound lighting, which is a very distinguished feature of the Strix Scar. Like all other ROG laptops, you can also tweak your display mode depending on what it is that you're doing. So you've got a display profile that works best for certain scenarios, and you can switch on the fly. And surely enough, you can decide on your performance mode. So if you're just doing, regular office work, keep it on silent. Or if you're gaming, then move to performance or even tune in to turbo mode for maximum performance. Now, let's talk about that keyboard. So it's a 17-inch display, and you generally get a full keyboard at this size with the number pad. The typing experience itself is really good. Soft keys, decent feedback. Not the best, but better than most, I would say. And here's how they sound. You've also got these customizable macro keys that you could assign any common function as well. The trackpad, it's not centered, could be an issue for a few days until you get used to it. Now the response is good, but here's my take on it. Most Windows laptops do not have really good trackpads. I've always found myself using an external mouse when it comes to Windows machines. Like, I'll be honest, I don't think the MacBook keyboards are the best, but their trackpad is insanely good. And I don't know what's taking Windows manufacturers or laptop manufacturers who use Windows to get it right. I mean, I know, gaming laptops, it really doesn't matter because you're not going to be using the trackpad too much. But as I said, people buy one laptop to do everything. And when they're not gaming, the trackpad kind of becomes important. And yeah, it's just nowhere close to how good the MacBook trackpads are. This is true for all Windows laptops and not just this machine. But yeah, the trackpad, it's there, it's decent, it's bigger, it's slightly better, so usable. Anyway, so that's pretty much it about the Strix Scar 17. Do remember that there are more sizes in the Strix Scar series. They're available in different combinations, and the availability of all of these variants will vary by region. So not everything is going to be available for you in your country. And for the price, which obviously is high, but it's high for all laptops, given this kind of specs and performance. And yet, this is one of the most value for money laptops or gaming laptops that you can buy in this performance segment. But if I were you, here's what I would do. I would save a bit more money and shell it out to get the Strix Scar 16 because it's going to be a little bit more portable, a little bit lighter. I'll get the one with the Nebula HDR display because again, brighter, more colors, it'll help me do other kinds of work when I'm not gaming. And I'll preferably get the one with the NVIDIA GPU because it's got the CUDA cores and it's going to work better with Premiere Pro for my video editing. So yeah, that kind of makes sense for me more. Alright, that's it for the Strix Scar 17. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comment section. And as always, if you enjoyed watching the video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification icon. And mark all, really helps the channel grow. I'll see you guys in the next one.